Okay, let's get down to it. So this week we're going to start. Well, actually, we're going to start with forest birds, and then the last few are going to be wetland birds. So first one we're going to start with tonight is eastern wood pewee. You can hear it. Sound coming through?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So eastern wood pewee's an easy one. It's one of the birds that says its name. So it's pewee, sort of a three-syllable pewee, but um, there's nothing really that sounds very much like it. Some people expect it to sound more like a phoebe, but if you remember the phoebe from one of the earlier nights, it's more of a buzzy call, more phoebe, whereas this is a nice clear whistle. Peewee's in the flycatcher family. The next several species are in the flycatcher family. It's a forest bird. It likes fairly tall trees. And because it's a flycatcher, most of them don't come back until at least the first week or two of May. There's no point in them coming back in March because there's not enough insects. Some eastern phoebes are back. I haven't heard one at our place yet, but they are showing up. But they're the first because they can get away. They can survive by eating berries or something for a few days. So eastern wood pewee. Let's just listen to another one or two. Yeah. So very distinct, and they'll be back in about a month. Um, And then there's going to be I'm going to do a couple of what we call the Empidonax flycatchers. And there's a bunch of them, but I'm only including um, a couple in this course, the commoner ones. So we're going to listen to alder flycatcher. They are not really a forest species. They're um, actually, I was going to do them under the wetlands, but we'll include them because they're all flycatchers. Um, we'll do it now. Um, they're actually an open wetland bird. They need shrubs, so alder trees are a common place where you'll hear them. Um, Much easier to identify by song than they are by appearance because the Empidonax flycatchers all look a lot alike. Let's listen to a couple more. So it sounds a little bit like a phoebe. It's got that sort of a burry quality. So it's usually transliterated as Weebio. I'm not sure that quite catches it, but it's almost three syllables, a bit like the wood pewee, but much sharper and more abrupt. There is another species which is less common around Ottawa, the willow flycatcher, which sounds a lot like it. If we have time at the end, I'll do a comparison with those two. They're not as common. Alder flycatchers are quite common in the right habitat. If you've got alder trees or willows and things in a wet area, um, even very damp ends of pastures and things, you can have alder flycatcher. Um, that's the song. They also do a call. That's not the one I usually hear. Yeah, just that little pip. You hear that one too. Okay, least flycatcher is a forest bird. We're going to do it next. Oh, I should have talked a bit more about. Let me go back and just talk about identification. I'll go back to the wood pewee. Sorry. Um, a lot of the flycatchers look something alike, but wood pewee is fairly distinctive. It'll be in trees, tall trees, and It's got very little eye ring, if any. This one you can see a little bit. Let's get another one that, yeah. So, but it has got nice, fairly bright wing bars, but not much of an eye ring. The other thing, it's quite similar to some of the Empidonax flycatchers, but its tail is a bit longer and it hasn't got as much of an eye ring, and it's got a yellow base to the bill here on the lower mandible. So watch for those, but listen for the song because you'll hear a lot of them for every one you see. Okay, I'll go to alder flycatcher again. Let's get a better one. Yeah, this is fairly typical. So it's an Epinonax. So they have bright pale wing bars and a pretty clear eye ring usually. That's variable across the species. Alder flycatcher is kind of at the gray end of the spectrum, but really listen for the song. Let's get the song again. Yeah. Weebue. And then there's least flycatcher, which is probably the commonest around here. It's a forest species. It likes fairly tall trees. Um, let's get a nicer view of one. Oh, that's a nice one. So this is a least flycatcher. You'll notice it's quite a bit greener than the alder was, and a very bright white eye ring, and of course the wing bars that all the Empidonax have. Um, uh, None of these three we've looked at so far bob their tails like the Phoebe. Phoebe has no trace of an eye ring, it has quite a dark head, but the wagging tail that we talked about when we were talking about Phoebe. Okay, let's get a song. Chibik, chibik. Nothing sounds like it. And they like trees, so you'll hear a lot more than you'll see. So learn the song. It's a good one to learn. They're quite common in forested areas. Yeah. It's a sharper call. That's the call. The chibik is the song. It's a sharper call than the one you get out of the alder flycatcher. But the songs are really the distinctive vocalization for me. I've never really learned the calls very well.
So, Ken,
Yes.
this is a group of birds that their song is innate. Am I correct?
Yes, that's probably true because these are um,
They don't learn their songs, in other words.
no, they don't they're not the real songbirds. I mean, they're songbirds in that they're passerines, but what's the term we use for them? There's oscines and suboscines.
Right.
So these are suboscines. They're they are born with the song, and the songs are simple usually in
So,
comparison to what an oscine would do. Um, we're just going to finish with the flycatchers, and all the rest today, or at least in the forest ones, will be oscines. So
yeah.
they have
I,
more ability to learn songs.
yeah, the reason I asked that is because one year I was in the woods and I heard a peewee, but it was just going pee,
Yeah,
pee. It wasn't doing the full song. It
yeah,
was kind of odd.
yeah. So yeah, sometimes they just aren't doing the full Monty, like especially early in the spring or even more late in the summer when the young birds are first trying to sing. You can get some pretty brief versions of any bird. So
Okay.
anyway, yeah. Okay, great crested flycatcher. So this is one of the larger flycatchers. In fact, it's probably the largest flycatcher we have as a regularly occurring bird. It's a forest bird, but you can find it out on the edges of forest. It's one that nests in holes. So it needs nest holes, but it just uses an old woodpecker hole or a nest box. They're famous because they often include discarded snake skins in their nests. Uh, And they will also use cellophane or other shiny transparent plastics to replace the snake skins. I don't know the reason for that. The thought has been that maybe they discourage predators or something, but a discarded snake skin really doesn't look dangerous, I don't think, unless it's just the smell that helps. I don't know. The birds wouldn't be aware of the smell. So anyway, they're quite a large flycatcher, as I said, smaller than a robin, about the size of an oriole, if you know an oriole. Um, we're going to talk about eastern kingbird in a minute. They're a little bigger than an eastern kingbird, or at least they look bigger because they have a longer tail and that. But you'll see them in forests. They don't usually go out onto a prominent perch to sing. They can, but they will just sit in a tree too. So it's good to learn the song. So here's the song. Weep. Yeah, various versions of it. Let's try another one. Um, the tail is quite reddish if you get it in good light. You can see a bit of it here. And they have a pale yellow uh, belly, grayish throat. The back is sort of a warm brown. You can see this one's got quite a heavy bill. Um, this genus of flycatchers tends to have a heavier bill, as do the kingbirds. The the Empidonax and wood pewees have a fairly small bill, or at least a comparatively small bill. There are wing bars, but you can't confuse these with the smaller flycatchers. The color is quite noticeable and they're fairly large. So it's described here as being like the tweet of a policeman's whistle with a whistle with a bead in it, so you get that burry sound. I don't know. I don't know what they had for no, call. I don't. They will do a series of notes. Yeah, that's quite common. That whip, 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 whip. Yeah, I think that's kind of an alarm call. It's you hear it a lot. So one more kingbird tonight, or one more flycatcher. Eastern kingbird. Um, I have these in with the forest birds, but they really like clearings and edges. You'll see them around, they often nest around the edges of wetlands. They always nest down in a tree at the shore of our beaver pond. Um, but they will nest in shade trees along roads and that too. You often see them on fence wires or on fence posts. They tend to hunt uh, about that height, although they will also hunt higher in trees. This one's actually caught an insect. As far as appearance, yeah, uh, quite white on the underside, a bit of a gray shadow on the chest. Again, a fairly heavy beak. They're catching larger insects than the small flycatchers. The top is mostly black, or a very dark charcoal, but really more of a black. Not much in the way of wing bars. If you're seeing one from the back, well, even from the front, you can see it here. The best field mark is the bright white band on the end of the tail. I'll see if there's a picture that shows it better. Well, you can see it there. Let's get one from the back, if there is one. Yeah, I'm not getting one from the back, but you can see the white band very clearly here. And here's the song. Just a series of squeaky twitters. That one's really wound up. They're very aggressive in defending their territory. Um, from other kingbirds, but also from predator type birds. So a crow or a hawk that goes through a kingbird's territory will nearly always be challenged. They'll fly right up to meet it, and they'll calling constantly and sometimes even hitting them on the back. They're really quite fearless in defense of a nesting area. That's very typical, that series of songs. Lots of squeaky, buzzy notes. Doesn't sound like any other flycatcher. And I really, oh, there's one from the back. So you can see the black on the head, very dark charcoal down the back, and the white band at the tip of the black tail. Tail has a rounded end usually when it's sitting. Um, so that's the flycatchers. The next four species, we're going to look at some of the local vireos. They're a family of their own, and there's nothing very closely related to them here. Shrikes are thought to be a related family, but um, our vireos don't look much like our shrikes, so you really don't have to worry about confusing them with anything else. Um, However, telling the various vireos apart can be a little tricky. We're going to start with an easy one. This is yellow-throated. Let's look at it first. So, bright yellow throat, hence the name, bright white wing bars, and then a green head with bright yellow spectacles. And all the vireos have quite a heavy beak. So, in a quick look, this looks a bit like a pine warbler. Although pine warbler doesn't have these yellow spectacles, it does have pale arcs above and below the eye. But it also has some streaks usually on the underside, and the yellow is much more extensive.
And
But
its bill is much finer as
that's
well.
right. It has a warbler bill, a fine warbler bill. Um, the vireos all have this heavier bill with a little bit of a hook on the end, which is why they're thought to be related to shrike family. Um, this one is also fairly easy to identify by song. Great crested flycatcher calling there. Okay, so the typical vireo pattern is to ask a question and answer it. So it'll be diddly, diddloo, diddly, diddloo. Yellow-throated is not all that common around here, but I kept finding them during the breeding bird atlas. We usually have one singing on the property for a few days here in the spring. I don't think they've actually nested here, but they do nest on the Wolf Grove Ridge. I've had them several places just west of here. Um, uh, where else have I even got them up in my Levant Station Square down at the south end towards Snow Road Station. Um, High Lonesome, the Mississippi Madawaska Land Trust property up on Pakenham Mountain, has yellow-throated vireos breeding. So it's quite a distinctive vireo. We'll see how distinctive it is when we look at some of the others. The song is that diddly, diddly pattern that I talked about, but very slow. The other thing to listen for is the burry quality. If you remember, the scarlet tanager sounded like a robin with a sore throat, or even more like a rose-breasted grosbeak with a sore throat. Just that little bit of a buzz in it. Um, this one has that same quality, but the song is much more spaced out. So let's listen to it again. Hear that long pause? Very distinctive. And yellow-throated vireos like tall shade trees in forested areas with tall deciduous trees. And they're usually fairly high up, not always. They like oaks, but doesn't have to be oaks. Maples will work. The next one we're going to look at is a close relative of yellow-throated vireo. It's blue-headed. We're going to spend some time on these vireos, so don't worry if you don't get it first time off the bat. So again, that delete, delete pattern, but spaced out. The pattern is very similar to yellow-throated. Wide gaps between the phrases. But the quality is clear. There's no buzz in it. Let's listen to a different one. Very clear musical whistles.
I usually do a count of 2 between the
Yeah,
first and
yeah.
the second part.
Now, the reason I'm emphasizing the spacing is I'm going to go now to red-eyed vireo, which is the one that you have to learn and you tell the others apart from it. So here's red-eyed. Oh, let's identify a blue-headed first. So a slate gray head. That's why they call it blue-headed, because it's slate gray. Um, that was a birder's joke. It's got the same heavy beak. It has the spectacles, but they're white, bright white instead of yellow. Very white throat. Has a little flash of yellow on the flanks here under the wing. And it has bright white wing bars. So both vireos we've looked at so far have clear wing bars. And they have spectacles, just white in one, yellow in the yellow-throated. Okay, we're going to go to red-eyed, which is very common. So you hear the delete, 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 delete. Asks the question and answers it. No buzzy quality. It's clear whistles. Learn this one. They're a forest species, but any half decent sized piece of forest will do. They'll be high up most of the time. You will hear 100 red-eyed vireos for every one you see, except maybe in spring migration when once the leaves are out, they're hard to see. It's called red-eyed because the iris is bright red, although you can't see it very well in this one. A little better there. Let's see if we can get one that's a little clear. There you go. Bright red iris. Sounds like a great field mark. The chances of getting a good look at it are so remote. I wouldn't worry about it. Let's get a better view from the side. Yeah, here's a good one. So it's a green, the back and wings and tail are all just plain green. No wing bar. And it's got a dark line through the eye, a white stripe over the eye, and then a black mark, which delineates a sort of a nice gray crown on here. Again, the vireo beak a little heavier, but not as heavy as in blue-headed and yellow-throated. But it's still enough that you can tell it's a vireo. Clear white throat, clear white underparts, as most of our vireos have, except for the yellow-throated. But just remember, it's got no wing bars, and the head pattern is fairly distinctive. Fairly. Let's hear what it sounds like again. Yeah. Here I am. See me. The other thing about red-eyed vireos is not only are they very common, they never stop singing. Most birds you have to get out before 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning or even earlier to hear them singing well. Red-eyed vireos, you can go out anytime and they'll be singing pretty much right through the day.
You
And
were
they
very
also,
polite about that, Ken. You were
yeah,
very polite. I would have said it another way, but
yeah. Um, and they'll sing way into the summer, like right to the end of July at least. So learn the red-eyed because you're going to hear a lot of them. You'll have lots of opportunities to learn it, and you can listen for the ones that are different then. Um, One other vireo we're going to talk about, which is also pretty common around here. This is warbling vireo. It looks like a washed out version of red-eyed. It's got the white eyes, white line over the eye, a bit of a shadow through the eye, but and even a bit of a cap. It's all very washed out compared to red-eyed, which we'll go back to in a second. White underparts. The back is just sort of grayish, greeny gray. Um, Probably more gray than anything. This is a pretty good picture showing the color. There's another one. This one you can see the white eye stripe a little better. Still got the vireo bill. No wing bars. So the two common ones without wing bars are red-eyed and warbling. This is a pretty good photo. Best place to see these and hear these, probably locally. You can't miss them in mid-May or even early May. Is Britannia, right along Castles Road in the big trees there. You don't always get a good look, although if you go up along the ridge, you can usually look out into the treetops and get a look at them. There's usually several pairs in that area, so easy to find there. Um, Blue-headed, I should have mentioned this, blue-headed vireo needs some evergreens. Here they're at our place, they usually hear them singing in the hemlocks. Um, that's at least where they nest. Um, So you have to have some evergreens usually to have a nesting pair. You'll get them in migration, although they don't sing a lot in migration.
so Ken, Aileen Castles mentioned the yellow-throated vireo that was at Sheila McKee Park last year,
Oh yeah,
which sang like a blue-throated vireo.
yeah. Okay, blue-headed deer.
Sorry,
Yeah,
blue-headed vireo. I'm reading
yeah,
her thing, so
yeah. That can
um,
happen. I've heard of that too. Um,
they actually interbreed.
I don't know, but they are relatives. Yeah, they're all in the same genus. Vireo is the genus. But those ones with the spectacles are thought to be more closely related. But I don't know if they interbreed or not. But like these are Oskeens, so they can learn a song. And it may just be that there
Okay.
was a blue-headed singing close by when it was learning its song. Some of the closer relatives of the blue-headed that used to be considered the same species, they're in the West. Um, there's Plumbeus vireo and Casson's vireo. They look a lot like our blue-headed. There are differences. Um, they have more of the burry quality in their songs, a bit more like yellow-throated. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about them here, at least not in singing times. So warbling vireo, the plainest, no wing bars, just very drab. Go by the song. So let's listen to a song. So this vireo defies my thing about vireos all singing a similar pattern. You know, diddly, diddly. It can be slow or fast, but in the warbling vireo, it's so fast that it just runs together in this sort of chortly song. That's a call. Yeah, let's listen to a call because it's very distinctive. Call? Supposed to be a call. Didn't hear one. They have kind of a whiny little call. Mm, that's an excited one. Yeah. I think there was one just at the end there. Yeah, a bit of a one. I think I heard one in here somewhere, just in amongst the least flycatcher in the background. If you want to have a fun exercise after you're done this course, uh, go on to Dendroica or even Merlin and listen to their calls and see what you can pick out behind the one that's they're actually talking about. Don't have a lot of the call here. Anyway, the call is just kind of a whiny. So you'll hear that too if you're at Britannia in May. Okay, so let's go through them. Let's start with the red-eyed. Very clear head pattern, no wing bars, just green and white with the clear head pattern. The absolutely quintessential Vireo song. Dee dee dee, dee dee doo. See me, see you. Just sort of four-note phrases and fairly close together. No gap. Let's listen to one more. They also have kind of a whiny call note. I'll see if I can find one here. It's a little bit like yeah, that whiny buzz. You'll hear that quite often too, especially if you're anywhere near a nest. Okay, that's red-eyed. That's the one you want to learn first. Learn the song, very simple, up and down. Asks the question, answers it. Um, because of the way they go on, one of the old country names for it was preacher bird because they thought they went on and on like some of their preachers.
So not the annoying Vireo then? No.
Yeah, I've never heard that one, but
Yeah, I
the
want to use
the trouble with them is you'll hear them singing and so many of them that you have to listen for other things sometimes, especially if you want to hear other vireos. So we've just been let's just play the red-eyed one more time. Hear the pacing? Dee-dee-dee, 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 dee-dee-dee. Okay, here's blue-headed. So the quality is higher pitched, but it's a similar pattern to the red-eyed, but much more drawn out. What did you say, about 2 seconds, Janet? Yeah, or count to two?
Yeah, I always count
Yeah,
to two between.
yeah. Um, habitat can help, but we have mixed woods here. So we have all three of these and sometimes yellow-throated as well. So it just depends. Um, so just let's hear another one. One, two. Yeah. One, two. One, two, three. Yeah, even three sometimes. So just listen for that spacing. Listen for that higher pitch. One good thing to remember is blue-headed vireos come back towards the end of April. I hear blue-headed vireos the last week of April. I don't get red-eyed vireos till the second week of May usually. I have 2 full weeks to listen to blue-headed vireos before the red eyes come back and swamp them. Because I have maybe 2 pairs of blue-headed vireos in my 28 acres, and I probably have 10 pairs of red-eyed. So if you have somewhere where you have blue-headed vireos, get out there early in right around the end of April, early May, and listen for them. And you can easily track them down because the leaves aren't out yet. You can be sure what you're hearing, and it would really get you prepared for when the red eyes all come back. But that pattern, if you're out there when they're both singing, that's the pattern to listen for. Let's do one more. Oh, yeah, they've identified this an atypical one. It's space, but the phrases are quite clipped. That's that one's upset. Wonder if they've got it. They have quite a distinct call too. Yeah, another sort of a scoldy, whiny call. But I'm not always real good at telling all the vireo calls apart. Songs are easier. Um, if you hear a scolding blue-headed vireo, it's worth checking out. It might just be scolding you, but they also respond very well to predators. Um, yeah, warbling vireo is easy. Oh yeah, let's do yellow-throated. Remember the phrasing, the pattern is similar to blue-headed. One, two, three. So two or three again between, but the quality is quite different. I once had a field sparrow on Tim Drive, Janet, that was doing a perfect prairie warbler.
Oh
Just
no,
not quite as buzzy, but the pattern was, the
going up.
yeah.
Oh,
I had to hunt the bird up just to be sure. I mean, there's lots of field sparrows there, so I assume that's what it was, but I just wanted to be positive. Um, okay, that's the Vireos. If we get to the end and people would like me to go through them again and we have time, I'll be happy to do that. That's all our woodland species. So we're going to listen to some wetland species. Next week, we're going to do some more wetland birds, the non-passerines more. Um, but for tonight, we'll stick to some of the small wetland birds. The first one I'm going to do is Wilson snipe. That's a call, and that's their display. So snipe have calls like this. That one's upset. That's probably because the person was there close and recording it. They also have a display sound that they make. It's not a vocalization. They have specially shaped tail feathers. So they'll go way up in the air and then dive. And as the wind goes through, as they dive, the wind going through their tail feathers makes the winnowing sound. So we'll get it here. It comes here in a second. That's the call. That's the sound of the tail feathers. More calls. That's the tail feathers. They'll often do that in the evening, but you'll hear them all through the day in prime display season. They're back by the end of April, so you hear them quite early in May or even right at the end of April. They like wetlands, like real wetlands. Not in the water. They like wet, but they'll be back along the edges where there's sedges and things to nest in. They nest on the ground like most shorebirds. Um, as far as identifying them, they've got a very long bill. They're related to woodcock, which we're going to cover next week. So they both have the very long bill, and they use it for probing deep into the mud for food items. They have quite a large eye because they are quite often active, at least into the late into the evening. So they need a big eye to get enough light for seeing in dim light. Um, Typical shorebird, all speckly and streaky and very, very well camouflaged. They will come out in the open around the edge of water to feed, um, but usually the first thing you know of them being there, if they aren't calling, is they fly up from under your feet. Uh, yeah, another call. There's a Sora calling there that whoop. We'll be talking about rails next week. Just wondering if they have a call they make when you flush them, but I'm not picking it up here. So they have quite a few calls, but the real good one to listen for is not a call. It's the tail feathers that whoa, 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 whoa. So if you want to hear those, any wetland area with open, um, they won't be in deep cattails or anything. They need some a little lower growth to be really comfortable. So, but a beaver pond or a marsh with open, with stretches of lower vegetation and that will have them. Quite common around here. Um, yeah, we're going to do a few warblers next. This is northern water thrush. Despite the name, it's a warbler. Um, these come back fairly early too. They're usually back and singing on territory by the end of April. They have a fairly large bill for a warbler, but very pointy, like warbler bills tend to be. It's been called a water thrush because it has markings on the white underside, which remind you of a thrush. They're not a thrush, so it's just a name. Um, Look for the bright pale eye line over the eye, white throat with a dark stripe, and streaks on the underside, not spots like the thrushes have. It's also smaller than most of the thrushes, although it's probably fairly large for a warbler. They're down on the ground when they're feeding. They'll go right along the water's edge, but they will sing. They tend to sing 10 or 15 feet up. They like wetlands, but they like trees. So they're more of a swamp bird where there's scattered trees with wetland around them and under them. Um, Fairly common around Ottawa. You won't find them in around the edges of suburban areas usually, but they're if anywhere where there's alders, they also like alders. So anywhere where there's good swamp, beaver ponds and things, you'll hear them. So let's listen to one. So they're very loud and chirpy. That's a call. So sweet, 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 choo, 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 choo. The last part gets very loud and very emphatic. Listen for the pattern, not the actual notes. That's a more elaborate version. So it's kind of two parts, two or three parts. Sweet, 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 choo, 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 choo. But just listen for that three or four note emphatic ending. That'll always be the tip off. Another warbler. This one's very common. So this is common yellowthroat. Quite a small warbler, very skulky, but um, and they're a wetland bird. They'll be in marshes with cattails. They'll be in brushy areas that are wet. Doesn't have to be really wet, but it has to be dense and brushy. Um, doesn't have to be a lot of trees. They're quite happy with shrubs up to 3 or 4 feet tall or whatever. If there are some taller trees, as there often are in swamps they live in, they will sing from higher up. They're quite skulky, but they are one of the easiest birds to call out if you want to get a good look at them. So I don't know if anybody's ever talked to you about pishing for birds. So it's just to mimic a scolding call. So you just do something like psh, 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 psh. I hope that came through well enough on Zoom. I know Zoom filters some sounds.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so use that. Don't overuse it if it's in breeding season because it does get the local breeders worked up because they think there's a predator. But if you think you have a yellow throat and you'd like to get a look at it, pish and they'll usually pop up. Beautiful little bird. They're kind of drab from the neck back, just sort of olive green, but a bright yellow throat, hence the name. The males have this very distinctive black mask with a white border to it. I should show you a female. Hope they got one. Yeah. Here's a female. Almost the same, but not as much yellow and no black mask or white border. But they'll be in the same habitat. Probably not singing. I don't think the females sing, although the calls are similar. So let's listen to one. So I always hear it as witchity, 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 witch. It's more whistled than that, but that's the pattern you want to listen for. Let's try another one. That one's almost 2 syllables rather than the three, less typical. Yeah, that one's a bit more complex. So witchity, 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 witchity. So learn that one. It's quite common and it's easiest to find by the song. Let's listen to some calls because you hear them call a lot. They have a churr that's pretty distinctive. Yeah. So you'll hear that in wetland areas, in sedges and things, and then you'll know what it is. Well, these are young birds. Yeah, very loud. Chip, chip. So that's one call that's worth learning because you'll hear a lot of these. They're quite common all around Ottawa. They don't need extensive woods or anything. They just need a sort of a wet corner where there's enough cover for one pair to nest.
Yeah,
Another wetland. Sorry.
and that's the common yellow throat as opposed to the yellow-throated warbler.
Yeah. Yeah, which we usually don't get here, but it does confuse beginners that the names sound alike. They don't look anything alike, but another wetland warbler, yellow warbler. Um, yeah. This is the pretty much the only bird we have around here that's almost completely yellow. This is a male, so it has the chestnut striping on the breast, quite distinctive. Um, the head is yellow with a black eye in it, so that's quite distinctive. Let's see if we can get a view from the side more. Nope. This is a female, but it's not in very good light. See, much less streaking and greener on the head and back. If they have wing bars, they'll be yellow, so they don't stand out as much, but they're almost completely yellow. The only thing that's even close is a American goldfinch. But if you remember, American goldfinch has black wings and black tail and a black cap with bright white wing bars. So in flight, you can be confused for a second just because you see a lot of yellow. There's another nice male. Yellow warblers are very common. They don't breed at our place because we don't have enough low alders and willows because we have beavers and they eat all the alders and willows. So we get these sometimes in the spring for a few days, but I've never caught them breeding on our property. But another place to see these in the spring is Britannia. You cannot miss yellow warbler at Britannia. Go up on the ridge and where all those honeysuckle bushes are, up along the, especially the west end of the ridge, it's full of yellow warblers in mid-May. So let's listen to the song. Sweet, sweet, sweet shredded wheat. Let's try another one. That's a bit of a nasty one. There's actually a, a near overlap between some yellow warbler songs and some chestnut-sided warbler songs. If we have time at the end, we'll try to listen to both. That's a really nice typical one, just so you hear some of the variation. But just listen for the sweet, sweet, sweet shredded wheat in a wetland area where there's lots of shrubbery. Small trees aren't a problem, but they like more open, so there can be scattered trees. You won't hear them usually in cattails. They like shrubs and low woody growth. They nest they nest fairly low, but in a shrub, not on the ground. So that's the three wetland warblers that we commonly have to deal with. As I said, yellow warblers are quite common. Any willows or anything like that, you'll have yellow warblers. Um, there's one common wetland sparrow. It's a swamp sparrow. Swamp sparrow is closely related to to song sparrow. Um, but it doesn't really look much like one in breeding plumage. The juveniles can be a bit hard to tell apart, but we won't worry about those. So this reddish feathering in the wing, kind of a gray face with a black line behind the eye, gray on the breast, but with this warm brown on the flanks. You'll always have that. Some striping on the back, a bit of a reddish cap, typical sparrow beak for crushing seeds, although it's quite pointed. I think these eat more insects than a lot of sparrows do. Let's listen to a song. Simple trill. The characteristics of the trill vary a bit. Let's try some more. That's probably a really typical one. It's faster than the first one.
And usually loud.
Yes, as these are. Yeah. Um, much more musical than than a chipping sparrow, and usually they're not in the same habitat, although you can hear them from the same spot sometimes. If you're near a beaver pond or something in a pasture where there's chipping sparrows. Um, I'll try to I'll try to do a comparison if we have time at the end. Just a simple trail. You can go largely on habitat. If you're in a cattail marsh or a willow swamp and you hear a simple trill, think swamp sparrow first. If you're in your backyard, think chipping sparrow first. They're usually not that hard to tell apart. They do approach each other, some examples. Um, okay, one more tonight. Red-winged blackbird. Everybody knows how to identify a red-winged blackbird. Males are easy in the spring, at least. They're black with a red epaulette on their shoulder with a yellow border, pale yellow border. Sharply pointed bill, typical blackbird bill. They're in the blackbird family. Just be aware of the female, who looks nothing like the male. Most people that don't know birds are just learning their birds. They see this and they wonder what kind of sparrow it is. They're bigger than any sparrow, but they're just all streaky. They do have the same blackbird bill of the male, but other than that, they're just dark brown with pale streaking or pale with dark streaking, however you want to think of it. A light eyebrow with a bit of a dark line through the eye. Let's listen to some songs. So, honkery with a vibrato in the re part of it. Let's try another one. These are definitely a wetland species. Commonly, they nest in cattails, not entirely. They will nest in shrubbery if it's wet. When I was a boy, I used to find them nesting in alfalfa fields if the alfalfa was allowed to get tall enough. Probably near a wet ditch or something. But so they'll nest on the ground if they have to, but they're often nest up in a shrub or just attached to cattail stems out over the water. Let's listen to a couple more. These are called. Um, let's listen to some. So the song, probably most of you know the Red Wings song. Okay, pretty distinctive. That's sort of, I don't really know how to describe it. Almost, I guess, more metallic sound right at the beginning, and then that rather buzzy vibrato at the end. Let's listen to some calls. We do a lot of calls. Yeah, it's sort of a whistle. That's quite common. Not sure what this is. Hmm. Yeah, it's just one of the calls. Yeah, they can do that. That's actually quite a common one, especially if you're near a nest and they're flying over your head. You'll hear that one, but you'll also hear the chatter. See if I can- hmm. Yeah, that truck is very common. There, cardinal in the background. Yeah, that's sort of very often heard. They're singing now, so you can go out to any wetland area and hear red-winged blackbirds singing now. You won't see a female, at least I haven't seen a female yet. The male's been back at our place since March 10th, and I haven't seen a female yet. Our pond is still pretty much frozen over. The ice was looking like it was getting a little mushy today when it was 16 degrees. Um, the females probably won't bother coming back till the ice is at least going out. They don't have to set up a territory, so they don't care. Okay, I said I'd go back and try one. I will go back and I'm going to get out of my list. Oh, no, before we go to anything else, we're going to do a quick quiz. Almost forgot the quiz. Everybody would be upset if we didn't have the quiz. Not a great version of it. Anybody have an idea? There's a lot going on in the background of that one. The buzz in the front is Eastern Kingbirds. Let's see if that's what they're on about. Yeah, I hear it now a bit better.
It's like a high-pitched BB gun. Patoo!
Oh, I guess.
Patoo!
Yeah, there was the winnow and then the call. See, there's a lot of chat. I better get down here so I can see what people. Yeah, yes, that's a snipe. At least one person has correctly identified. Yeah, several people have identified it as a snipe. So that's Wilson's snipe. Better select it, I guess. Next question. Yeah, Eastern Peewee, Eastern Wood Peewee. Says its name. Peewee. No. Water thrush. Yeah, northern water thrush. Somebody got it. Yep. Sweet, 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 sweet. Choo, 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 choo. Very emphatic at the end. It's not a super typical one, but maybe we want to take a chance. No, it's not yellowthroat. Oh, sorry. Yes, you said yellowthroat. I thought you were saying yellow-throated vireo. Yes, it is a water throat, a yellow throat. I had a senior's moment there. Oh, next question. That's what I want. Yes, alder flycatcher. Somebody got it right. That's a very strong one. They usually sing in wide open areas, so you can hear they can be quite distant. Another flycatcher, if that helps. Yes, great crested flycatcher. Yep, good. Yep. Oh, no, somebody had red-eyed vireo. I'm pretty sure it's red-eyed. Um, I could be wrong, but um, we'll find out.
Oh,
I think it's
good.
too fast for anything else. Yeah. Fairly typical one, I think. Maybe a little slower than some. Another vireo. Blue-headed vireo. Yep. Yep. Several people got it. Good. It was a bit of a quiet one, but it definitely had the burry quality. Or oh, sorry, no, did I say blue-headed? I'll have to
Yeah,
hear it
it's,
again.
I think I was yellow-throated.
Yes, it was yellow-throated because it had the burry quality. Sorry, that was my bad. Yeah. Pattern is blue-headed like, but it's definitely got the burry quality. This is just a call. To be honest, I'm not sure about this one. My best guess would be I'm not even sure. We can get the answer. Let's see. Oh, least flycatcher. That's a call, not a song. Yeah. I thought it was a flycatcher. I was going to guess alder, but it didn't sound quite right. Calls can be tricky. Another call. I'm not sure what that one is either. I don't know why we're getting so many calls in the quiz tonight. We really haven't been working on them that much. Um, let's try swamp sparrow just for fun. No, it's not well, maybe it is. Nope. Show answer. Oh, yellow warbler. Yeah, yeah. I don't get to hear yellow warbler calls very much unless I go somewhere else. So, yeah. Okay, next question. Blue-headed vireo. Got several suggestions of blue-headed vireo. That would be my choice as well. So let's see how we did. Yeah. Well spaced. Not as the phrases aren't as musical maybe as usual, but the pattern is definitely blue-headed. Red-winged blackbird. Yep. Warbling vireo. Yes. The only thing that sounds a little bit like it is a purple finch, but not really. Right habitat, Sam Veth. Yeah. Swamp sparrow. Just one long straight trail. Nothing fancy about it at all. That's some reason we got swamp sparrow again immediately. I don't know why. I guess it gets random once they've gone through everything. So that was pretty good. We got answers to most of them except a couple of those calls. So
Does anybody have questions for Ken at this point?
yeah. I was going to, well, let's hear questions first. Yeah. Um, you can put them in the chat if you want, or oh yeah, Samvath had asked for a good place to look for kingfishers, cranes, herons, owls, raptors, and falcons. Well, let's take them one at a time because you wouldn't look for them in the same place. Kingfishers just need water. So along a lake or along the river, you can find them. Listen for them because they'll call frequently if they're around. Um, yeah, beaver ponds. We always have kingfishers feeding at our beaver pond. Um, So yeah, so they're easy. Just all you need is water with fish in it. Um, um, just got cranes. Cranes like open areas, but wet, fairly wet. Right now they're migrating, so you can see them even flying over. Next week we're going to talk about sandhill cranes, so we'll talk about them a bit more. They're migrating now. Um, they're going through Derby Hill Hawk Watch the last days. So we'll talk about we'll learn the call next week, and then you'll hear them if they're flying over. They're very loud. Owls. Um, Britannia has owls. Trouble with owls is they're active at night mostly, so you just have to get lucky or really know the best places to look to find owls. The best way to introduce yourself to owls is to listen at night in a wooded area. So yeah, there's different owls have different habitats, but they most of them like some woods. Raptors, again, it depends on the species. Red-tailed hawks like open. They need trees for nesting, but they hunt on open fields. Um, Sometimes they hunt around the borders of the beaver pond here. Red-shouldered hawks are just getting back. I haven't had one here yet, but they're going through Derby Hill in large numbers. They like woodlands, as do broad-winged, but they come back a little later. Um, Falcons depends what kind of falcon you mean. Our common one here is the little American kestrel. They like open areas, so you'll see them sitting up on fence wires or fence poles, not hydro poles, or up in the top of a tree, um, but out in the open near fields. Okay, so I got some other questions here. Does the snipe sound of the tail only occur during display flight? Yes, as far as I know, because they have to do kind of a dive to get the winnow out of the tail feathers. But you can hear it quite a bit when they're displaying. Like they'll do it repeatedly for hours on end. How do they sound? Which one do you mean, Samvat? I wasn't sure what you were talking about. Yes, vireos or oskins. Yep. Oh, snowy owls. Okay, snowy owls like fields out in the open. It's probably getting a bit late for them now. They probably most of them will have headed back up north. Occasionally, they hang on further into the spring. Um, Good places to look for snowy owls are between Canada and Richmond, down some of the back roads. But they'll just be sitting, quite often they're just sitting on the snow. So just look for a lump of snow.
Yeah, you have to look down the rows of corn
Yeah.
very carefully because usually they're there. They have all left from that area now, though I haven't seen any
Yeah,
there
it's
in a bit.
getting late for
Yeah,
them. I mean, they're going to be breeding in another month way up in the Arctic, so they got to get moving.
yeah.
Ken,
Oh, yeah.
I have a question. I saw my first Phoebe today, but I was very confused because it had quite a lot of yellow on its breast.
Ah, yeah.
What's
So
going on?
probably a holdover from, so when they have their fresh plumage in the fall, they can have a fair bit of yellow.
Okay.
It's usually gone by now, so you've got a bird that's held on to more of it than usual.
Yeah, I would have thought it would be gone by now.
Yeah.
But then when I started looking up the other flycatchers, it was like, no, only the Phoebe would be here at this time of the year.
Yeah, yeah, Phoebe is your default flycatcher until at least the last week of April, and
Okay.
even really the first week of May. Then but around the end of the first week of May, the great crested and eastern kingbird come back. The others tend to be a little later, even
Okay.
because
Thank
they
you.
need insects, eh?
Yeah.
So they're not in a big hurry.
And so you were saying that the Phoebes will eat leftover
They can eat
birds.
berries and stuff for a while till, yeah. So they come back earlier. They don't go as far south either. They just go down into the southeastern states.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they're also much more weather dependent. If we have an early spring, they'll come back earlier.
Okay. Interesting.
The kingbirds, as far as I know, I think they go to South America or something. So they go on day length. They'll come back to there. You can usually tell when the kingbirds are going to be here within about 3 days. Yeah, first end of the first week of May, you'll start to see them. Okay, I'm just trying to catch up with the chat here. Mud Lake. I think you could get kingfishers at Mud Lake. I don't go there very much anymore. Do you remember, Janet? Should be.
That's, I think you could possibly around maybe the south end more
Yeah,
likely,
yeah.
but
Where there's
it's
yeah, they
not
like to
the
sit up in
best. Yeah,
trees. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Or along the where the ospreys sit along the rapids.
Okay. Yeah.
But
They like rivers because they'll have a territory along a stretch of river. But lake shores too, especially when you get up onto the shield where the lakes are nice and clear and they can catch fish easily. They like clear water because it's easier to see the fish.
yeah, and they seem to, I know that when I go boating on the small little rivers, they seem to have a perch for a little while, they'll dive around there and then they'll fly forward.
Yeah,
And
they'll go
then
ahead of
they'll,
you.
yeah, and then they'll fly all the way back and then they'll do that all over again.
Yeah, so you've reached the boundary of their territory and you'll have to pick up another kingfisher.
Yeah,
Kingfishers probably aren't back yet. They can come back almost any time. They even try to winter if there's open water sometimes. Um, but usually a little later when there's more open water. Mud Lake is good for a lot of things because it's a large green oasis in the city with water in spring migration. So, first 2 or 3 weeks of May, lots of warblers, vireos, um, black crowned night herons, lots of ducks and things are there. Yellow warblers are common there, warbling vireos. Um, yeah, any of the warblers can turn up there in migration. Great for sparrows too. Catbirds, but catbirds like any brushy area. Yeah, Bruce's Pit can be interesting, and there are some treed areas that really extend. Carolina wrens, somebody was asking about. They do show up here um, but um, I don't know if there's any around right now. There's been a pair out near Carlton Place for a couple of years, but I haven't heard it recently. Um, they like brushy areas. Britannia is another place where they often turn up, but they will turn right up in the suburbs. They just need brush. Um, Song is the best way to find them. I can play a song if you like, but I'll have to get out of my list that I'm in. I just got to remember how to get back there. Oh, yeah. Exit quiz first. That'll help. Species lists. Manage lists. Manage list. Oops, I'm blocking myself here. Just getting rid of my list I was using tonight. So what? Oh, Carolina Wren. Yeah, very distinctive, quite a distinctive song. Tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle. That's a scolding call. The trouble with Carolina Wrens is they're not migratory. Very loud ringing song though, but they're not migratory. A bit like a northern mockingbird. They both come north. They'll keep trying to spread north, but then we have a normal Canadian winter and they get killed. So if we have a series of mild winters, they'll spread further and further, and then they'll get beaten back. So there's usually one singing somewhere in the spring around Ottawa. Subscribe to the eBird lists, and you can hear where one is being seen. There's nearly always one around somewhere, especially in the spring. But they will winter as well. They'll come to feeders.
Yeah, they seem to have extended their range north a bit. Probably climate change is having
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
to do.
they're nesting further north regular than they used to.
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
still not a permanent, I wouldn't call them a
No.
permanent resident here yet.
No. Same with the mockingbirds. There were
Same with
some near,
mockingbird.
yeah, there were some breeding near the airport a couple of years ago. And
Actually, mockingbirds seem to have retrenched a bit. I haven't had one for a number of years now. Beaver Marsh and Deschênes Forest in Elmer. I don't know if there's snipes there. Somebody's asking. But if it's a beaver marsh, there's possibility of them for sure. Yeah. Mer Bleu is good for a lot of things. Yeah. You can go out on the boardwalk at Mer Bleu and get some of those sort of bog things. Like there's, I don't know how often they come out where you can hear them, but they have breeding palm warblers in the Mer Bleu, for example. In a 6-week course, I have to admit that we could only cover whatever, 15 times 5, 75 species we're going to be covering in this course. It's just a taste, a tasting of some of the more common things. So by all means, go out and listen for the ones you know. And if you hear one you don't know, follow it up and try to get a look at it and identify it. Yeah. It really adds to your birding if you learn more of the songs.
Yeah. So Ken Sambath has been waiting to ask a question live to you. So we'll let
go
him.
for it, Sambath. We got a few minutes.
About the Carolina wrens, I saw a bird this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you how it started. First, I saw a bird. I wanted to know what it was, so I went and took a photo of it. Then I saw a few more birds. One of them was flying around, and then it flew up. I was able to get a photo of that too.
Yeah.
I checked it on iNaturalist. There were only two birds which actually looked like it. One was the merlin and one was the Carolina wren.
Oh, okay.
So I want to know if they're
Did you
around.
post them to iNaturalist, Sambath?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for them on iNaturalist before next week. Yeah, I'll see if I can find them, and I'll have a look at your photos, okay? And we'll talk about them next week. It's 8:29, so I guess we should probably wrap it up, unless there's a frantic last question.
No, I think we're pretty well ready to wrap it up there, Ken. So thank you once again. And it seems people are very glad that your cold seems to have dissipated.
Yeah, it only lasted about 5 or 6 days with me. I was lucky.
Yeah,
Poor Ruth was sick for a couple of weeks. She's on the mend now too, so we're both feeling much better.
Okay, so thanks very much. We'll see you again in 2 weeks because next Monday is Easter Monday.
Yeah.
Next Monday. Oh, wait a minute. No, we do have one on Monday.
Okay, I had it as
Yes,
having
yes,
one, but I
we
thought
do.
that
We
was
do
just my
have one
mistake.
on Monday. We do
Okay.
have it on Monday night.
And that'll be
Oh.
the last one.
That'll be the last one, and then I'll let people know that on the 13th, which is the next Monday, Derek Dunnett will be doing an introduction to birding at Point Pelee. So we'll get that information out to you via the normal events calendar through OFNC. Okay.
That should be interesting. Derek's
Yeah.
a very like he's a good communicator. He's fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should
Okay.
be well worthwhile.
Yeah. All right. So thanks very much, everybody, and take care until next week.
Thanks
Bye
for
now.
all your help, Janet.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Talk to you next week.